Hello guys, I'm here with Alistair Waddell of Inflection Resources. He's also head honcho basically or one of the head honchos of the Newquest Capital Group. So I thought I would ask him about Inflection obviously, but maybe start off with just telling us what Newquest does.
Yeah, thanks, Erik. So Newquest Capital, it's a private Canadian group that has been together a few years now. There's four sort of principals of the group, three of whom are geologists, including myself. And we're a group that specializes in sort of early stage exploration and opportunity recognition, I guess. We recognize there's a bit of a gap in the mineral exploration market. Not many groups, including the major mining groups, I would add, are really doing a lot of early stage exploration. So we really put the group with a focus around that, and the goal really is to identify projects, new projects that have never been drill tested before, ideally, and in jurisdictions ultimately where the major mining companies want to own their assets in the long term. And we've put together a portfolio of companies now of over several years, four of which are public, two of which are private. But the common theme is big targets, good jurisdictions. We apply a lot of really good geoscience to the target generation aspect of these different ventures. And we've set about building companies around these specific ideas. And with the four public companies, we have Red Canyon Resources, which is focused on porphyry copper exploration, mostly in British Columbia and Nevada. We have Headwater Gold, which is laser focused on high-grade epithermal veins in the western United States, mostly in Nevada, a little bit in Idaho. We have Finex Metals, which is focused in northern Finland, exploring for high-grade orogenic gold. And we've got a whole series of projects in and around we'll call the Central Lapland Gold Belt. And the fourth public company is Inflection Resources, which is the one I manage on a day-to-day basis. And that's exploring for copper and gold in eastern and now northern Australia as well. So we're busy, but we've got lots of things going on in different parts of the world. But the common theme is, big targets, new targets. We really don't want to be drilling old prospects that have been drilled many times before. These are generally new concepts that have never been drilled.
Right, and I was just going to touch on, how I look at the Newquest approach, and why I own, all the public listed companies at least. Is that, the way I see it, and you explained it to me before, you have a lot of you have background in major miners, and you actually, being kind of, involved in grassroots identification or grassroots exploration, basically. So you know how they think because you have been the one thinking it before. So then you kind of reverse engineer. It's like, okay, what? And of course, I would just assume that, you get to run in with the major miners and they talk to you about what they are looking for. And as you said earlier, they really, a lot of the major miners, they kind of stopped doing their own grassroots exploration. I've heard a lot of stories where they've cut down on all the, exploration teams, especially since, from the last bear market. And I guess it's kind of hard to also build them up again. So it's like, okay, why not basically divest that part to the juniors? So it's like you have the experience of a major miner, you talk to major miners, and then you kind of reverse engineer what they want to see on the menu, let's say. And then you try to find grassroots, undrilled, or mostly undrilled projects that would fit that description, where it be jurisdiction, location, because as I've always or also heard is that, let's take a big base metal project, for example. It's a lot about logistics, let's say. You need to find something, so big and maybe so high grade if it's super remote and all that. So, and I think, the best evidence of you being so good at it is, of course, anybody can go and look which companies are involved with the Newquest Capital companies. So, as I said, off mic, if you took I don't know how many average juniors, grassroots explorers you would need to basically pick to see one having a good earning with a major company, and you have multiple companies with earnings with majors and multiple projects at that. So just statistically, it's, I mean, extreme anomaly in a sense what you've been able to do, which I think, I mean, again, it's like third-party validation is the best validation a retail investor can have. It's like it's not only you as the company or me as, you know, let's say talking about a company saying that, hey, there's, you know, major mine potential here, but it's actually the experts in the field being the major miners who are saying this. So I just, you know, I was going to say just, you know, tip of the hat that it's extremely fascinating how you are able to basically have this track record of picking so many projects that gets major involved. And I think that's one thing that you know, if I would give a tip to a retail investor, it's like, you know, look at what Rick Rue likes to say, look at who cares. Or maybe it was Brent Cook actually, but it's like, who cares? You know, if a major company is in there and is betting on a project and a team, etc., they would have done much more due diligence than a retail guy like myself can do. So already then you know that you know, this is legit, not that it's 100% guaranteed success of any of these, you know, high risk, high reward targets, but it's like that alone is what I really like. And then you add the fact that you guys eat your own cooking. I mean, insiders, I believe, are the largest shareholders in every single Newquest company, and if anybody goes and check the trading volume, one would realize that there's no way that you guys can flip, let's say get out without actually doing anything. I mean, the only way that I see that you guys make anything, you know, really out of your ownership is that there's a liquidity event one day. And that's what I also spoke about off mic. That's like, I mean, I know you guys will be obsessing about each of these companies. I don't need to. I'm just betting on you guys, let's say, because you have all the incentive in the world, and including all the partners you're getting to actually make a big success here, because that's the only way you're actually going to have a success. So I don't know, would you say that's kind of accurate, or, you know, correct me if I'm wrong?
No, you're right. I mean, you know, we set these companies up with the goal of making a discovery. You know, we're not interested in recycling some old project just for the sake of it. You know, we want something big and we want something new. And, you know, as you mentioned, you know, most of us got sort of major mining company experience. And, you know, with that experience, if you've been working with the major mining companies, you generally kind of appreciate what their criteria are. And we work very hard at trying to understand, you know, what jurisdictions they want to operate in. Are the jurisdictions that they want to be in that they're currently not in? You know, we can establish a presence in a new jurisdiction a lot quicker and more cost effectively than the major miner. And it goes on. I mean, you know, what are their minimum size criteria in terms of deposit types? What types of deposits are they looking for? So you start putting on these different sort of filters to your criteria, and then you put on the non-technical, you know, logistical sides of things. You know, we don't get too far off the grid in terms of, as you say, with big base metal or porphyry copper type deposits and things. So we're very mindful of those sort of aspects as well. So you bring all that together, and the world suddenly gets quite small in our world. And you know, we're operating in Canada, the US, Australia, and Finland. I think all super solid mining friendly jurisdictions, ultimately where most of the major mining companies would be happy to own and operate their assets in the long term. So those are the sort of the core principles. But the big one, I think, overall, Eric, is finding new things. And you know, a lot of these projects that are being explored right now have been around the block many times. And you know, a lot of the major mining companies will have an opinion of these things already. So you want to do something new, and ideally in a belt scale. So if you can acquire a district scale, a belt scale land position and own it outright through staking ground, and you don't have any complex underlying deals and payments and royalties to be made. These are all great factors in being able to attract the attention of the major miners.
I mean, that also, I just want to just touch on the fact that, I mean, you really see exploration as a numbers game. So I mean, if I look at the portfolios in pretty much every of the Newquest companies, and what I really like, I mean, I call it, you know, diversification to the upside, let's say. I mean, you just take a bunch of, let's say, I mean, Inflection is the best example because you own a small country basically, and it's just, you know, multiple projects with multiple target areas, and each target area have, you know, multiple targets within them basically. Well, especially I guess Macquarie Arc, because they have this clustering effect of porphyries. So it's like it's almost a target inception in a sense, target within a target within a project. And what I like, obviously, if you look at let's say market caps, you realize like you need to get lucky once, right? I mean, that's a success. If you find one significant discovery, that's a success, from especially from these market caps. And just the fact that, I mean, I see it almost as you're getting like 10 juniors worth of targets in taking, especially Inflection. And you know they have been vetted also by, well, not only your experts, because I mean your technical team is probably the most obscene team I've seen in a junior. I mean, it's like Douglas Haynes and all of those guys who have made these super large discoveries before. And you also obviously in Macquarie Arc in New South Wales, you have AngloGold, who obviously, you know, they're working with you. So it's if you guys drill something, there's a good reason for it, right? So that's what I really like, that it feels like I own 10 juniors worth of targets in one junior, and I'm only really paying barely maybe for one target. So I mean, for this, take Inflection for example, to be let's say a proper failure, you would have to miss on every target you drill until whatever 10 years from now or something, because I know your pipeline is so large right now that you could be easily busy for 10 years, for example. So I just wanted to, like, again, give a tip of the hat to the fact that you're well aware that these are high risk, high risk, high reward targets, but that's also why the projects or the companies are structured that way, that it is a numbers game. And could you maybe touch on that? It's like, how are you thinking when you're generating these portfolios?
Yeah, so I mean, specifically regarding Inflection, I mean, these targets are large, they're potentially high value. You know, it's the same amount of dollars to drill test a very large target that it is to test a small one. So ultimately, we've taken a very probabilistic approach to drill testing lots and lots of targets, and the key is being able to drill these targets very cost effectively. And so, but it is a little bit of a numbers game. And you know, we're very mindful of that, and you know, that's the rationale for having such a large portfolio of targets. But maybe Erik, maybe just to provide a little bit of context to this strategy, maybe I can step back a little bit and sort of just explain a little bit what we're doing specifically in New South Wales with Inflection Resources. It's a belt of rocks called the Macquarie Arc, as you mentioned, and this is a big north-south trending belt of rocks that is host to some of Australia's biggest copper gold mines. The big one in the belt, or the giant one in the belt, is Cadia. This is the flagship mine of Newmont in Australia. It's a super long life underground block cave copper gold porphyry system, and there's a number of other big mines in the belt. The other one is Evolution Mining's North Parks operation that's been around a long time and it's got a tremendous life ahead of it. And the other one is Cowal, also owned by Evolution Mining. And to cut a long story short, for those that don't know the story, this big belt of rocks continues to the north and it disappears under a blanket of younger sedimentary cover, masking this older, highly prospective belt. And what we did a few years ago now is we took advantage of a large regional aeromagnetic survey completed by the government in New South Wales to encourage investment in mining exploration. And this magnetic survey, this airborne survey, clearly demonstrated this big belt of rocks that hosts these giant mines to the south continues underneath this blanket of sediments. And we set about staking this entire northern extension of this belt. And in doing so, We partnered up with a gentleman called Dr. Douglas Haynes, who you just mentioned. And Douglas has been a serially successful explorer over the years, initially with Western Mining Corporation, a very iconic exploration group or mining company in Australia, and later with BHP. Douglas has been involved in a number of big discoveries, including Olympic Dam in Australia. And he did a lot of detailed work, and he basically extrapolated the known outcropping geology in the south underneath this sedimentary cover. And in doing so, he identified a huge number of targets he considered analogous to these major mines located further to the south. And critically, and as I mentioned earlier, these targets had not been drill tested before. So we set about testing all of these targets, and this comes back to your point, Eric. This is sort of very much a probabilistic approach, a little bit of a numbers game. So testing big targets, drilling them for the first time, and what we did, we drilled a number of holes into a number of different targets. We hit rocks with the right age, the right characteristics in terms of geochemistry, etc. And that caught the attention of AngloGold Ashanti. And a couple of years ago now, we partnered up with AngloGold, and they've been funding us to do a lot of regional drilling across the portfolio. And earlier this year, they whittled that portfolio down to 4 projects, where they've now got a mechanism to earn up to 75% by spending significant amounts of capital on each of the targets and completing pre-feasibility studies on each of those 4 individual projects. So it's a long-term game. We're drilling big targets that are blind. There's no outcrop on surface to this younger sedimentary cover, but it's a fabulous place to explore in terms of logistics. We're not dealing with seasonality like we would be in North America, for example. It can operate year-round, good networks of little roads servicing big farms where these targets are located, and just a great place to operate. And I'm sure we'll get into it, but we've had a little bit of success with AngloGold so far, and we're advancing these targets through phase 2 right now.
Yeah, I mean, the funny thing is, like, when I read up, and we'll get to the new projects soon, it's like the fact that Douglas Haynes, I mean, I knew he had found Olympic Dam, but it's like when I read up on it, it's like it appears that he was also he generated the idea of IOCGs actually. And I mean that's extremely, I mean, impressive. Obviously, just going back to the fact that his idea of the extension of the Macquarie Arc Belt, that is like he has let's say a history of actually coming up with these theories and actually it's like being correct, and then basically discovering a whole new type of deposit. So it's like then you're talking, I was going to say a savant, but it's like somebody that's extremely good at speaking to rocks, I guess. And
well, he's a big thinker.
Yes,
he's a big thinker.
Right.
He loves new ideas and whatnot. And the other big one, Eric, is he did some targeting for Robert Friedland and ultimately came up with the idea that led to the discovery of Kamoa as well. So he won the PDAC International Discovery Award as part of that team for that discovery as well. So that was a brand new concept, looking for copper, and obviously he's one of the world's largest copper mines, probably the best discovery in recent years, to say the least.
Right. So basically, if he has an idea, it's like you should probably look here for some copper. It's like he has the track record more than most people, I guess, in the entire world, to actually back that up, why it would be a good idea. And basically, you've already proven the concept, right? Because you have hit, porphyry mineralization at Trandio, for example, and there's obviously, I mean, up at Duck Creek, and maybe it's like, where are you today in terms of, the thesis basically compared to, well, before you had drilled anything? It's like, where are we? It's like, what do you know now about the land position, the portfolio, the whole case for it?
Yeah, so when we started this, it was a little bit of a leap of faith because really there wasn't any significant data at all. So We've got properties that extend over a strike length of about 250 kilometers from north to south. So it's a vast, vast area. And there was literally just a handful of holes that actually drilled through the cover and hit the prospective basement sequence. So it was a bit of a gamble, a bit of a leap of faith, but really, in a relative sense, relatively low risk. I mean, we're able to drill through the cover sequence very cost effectively. We use a technique called mud rotary drilling, which is a fairly old technology used for mostly drilling sort of water wells, and you don't recover any samples. So we just drill down through the sediments, and once we hit the prospective basement, we pull out the mud rotary drill bit, and we put down a traditional diamond core drill bit. And we do relatively short core holes into the basement sequence. And with that, we can get a good understanding if we're in the right environment, we're in the right age rocks. That's a sort of a critical thing in this part of the world. We want to make sure we're in a sort of prospective window for porphyry copper style mineralization in the Macquarie Arc. So our knowledge of this part of the belt is massively different than what it was when we started. We've drilled a couple of hundred holes now into the basement sequence, and I think we've done tremendous things to really understand that northern continuation of the belt. So we do systematic geochemistry, we do sort of mapping of the core and the basement sequence. We do geochronology, which is understanding the age of the rocks that we were intercepting and things like this. So we apply a lot of really good geoscience to these short intervals of core. And when we get the right geochemistry and the right alteration, that's when we transition to deeper, more traditional diamond core drilling and things. And we've done that now on a number of the projects. And there's a sort of core number of projects that we're working on with AngloGold, but we've also got other targets in the belt that either remain to be tested or need to go back and do some additional drilling on it at some point. But we operate the joint venture for AngloGold Ashanti, and that's really been sort of keeping us busy, just focusing in on a couple of those projects predominantly. So we've got our hands full with that in New South Wales.
Right. I mean, it's basically, I mean, still kind of the even though it's been a couple of years, you're still kind of early in figuring out everything, and there's plenty of targets left to drill, which then brings me to, okay, given that your understanding of the geology there has evolved, I mean, the latest news release was that you staked kind of the extension to the southeast from Trangie, and before that you staked almost as big, or maybe it was actually bigger, land package on the parallel trend to the east. So can you, why did you pick up the larger projects to the east, and how were you able to pick up the extension, let's say, to the southeast of Trangie?
Well, the first one, the belt to the east, really came about just by our understanding of the Macquarie Arc. As I mentioned, we've drilled lots of holes further to the west, and broadly speaking, there's two sort of parallel belts that disappear under the cover, and we've really focused our efforts on the westernmost belt. That's called the Juni Narromine belt. And it became apparent with the more work we did, and we'd look at the regional data. We're like, what on earth are these curious magnetic features further to the east? And it's a real stretch of the imagination to some degree, but it looks like it could be sort of the continuation of this eastern belt called the Molong belt. And these segments of the what we interpret to be the volcanic belt have never been drill tested before. Now the cover sequence there might be a little bit deeper, particularly to the far north. But the point is, these were areas that were on open ground, we're able to acquire through staking. It costs us very little. And ultimately, we've worked up some very detailed targets that will require systematic drill testing at some point down the road. But they're big targets. They're 2 hours up the highway from Australia's biggest copper gold mine in what we interpret to be the same or at least similar geology to the big mine. So very interesting concept. It's a swing for the fences play for sure. But if we're right, then we've got the entire piece of that particular belt. The other point you mentioned there, Erik, was we picked up a piece of ground just to the southeast of our Trangie project. And this was a piece of ground that was acquired by a major mining company. It was Fortescue, in fact. And they acquired it very early on after we picked up the area that is now our Trangie project. And we've been watching this ground for a long time. And as our understanding of the drilling from the drilling at Trangie really highlighted this area to the south. And we were aware by digging through some historical information, there was a handful of very shallow holes drilled into this area by Goldfields in the 90s, which apparently was never followed up upon. And two of those shallow holes intercepted or made reference to bornite and chalcopyrite these historic holes. And as I say, we don't believe it's ever followed up upon. And we've just been watching this license, and ultimately came available well, a couple of months ago now, and we acquired it through staking. So we've just bolted on an additional piece. It's currently excluded from the Anglo Gold agreement, but we'll see how that progresses. We have got plans to do some additional drilling in that area in the new year, and we'll see if we can replicate this historical drilling. And obviously, if we're getting bornite and chalcopyrite, these are copper minerals. They're often commonly associated with these porphyry deposits that we're looking for in the Macquarie Arc. So certainly very curious, and it'd be amazing to extend our Trangie project further to the south and the southeast. We'll see how that goes.
All right, I was going to say the context is good because obviously to the south you have known mines, and to the northwest you have Trangie where you hit porphyry. So it's like, I mean, it's a stretch of ground in between known mines and known porphyries, I guess. And how is the cover sequence there? I mean, why did Goldfields drill there? It's like, was it because it was near surface, you could find outcrops, or?
No, there's no outcrop there. I think the cover is sort of about 150 meters thick. Don't quote me on that, but something along those lines. So similar challenges for sure. Why Goldfields targeted area, I'm not entirely sure, but certainly it doesn't appear to have been followed up upon, because all the work you complete in New South Wales or in Australia, in fact, you have to submit reports every 6 months, I believe it is. And you have to report all your drill results and what you find, and any data you collect all gets compiled by the government. And then once you drop the license, all that information becomes available for anybody that can access this portal called MinView. So you can go on and look at any historical work, everything from soil samples to drill holes to geophysical surveys. It all comes available.
All right. So to sum up, I mean, you have basically a major-sized exploration portfolio in New South Wales, but you have more projects than that. For that, we have to go to the north, where you also, you can tell us about the acquisition. You basically acquired a portfolio from a pretty well-known company.
Yeah, so you're referring to the Northern Territory project. We now refer to call the Endurance project. So this is a complete shift. And in addition to what we're doing in New South Wales, so we're in the far north of Australia, near a town called Tennant Creek. And this was a large portfolio of properties or targets that were generated by Newquest mining. And Newquest did a sort of a country scale targeting exercise looking for large scale copper deposits, copper gold deposits. And they identified this specific area in the Northern Territory and acquired about 4,200 square kilometers of exploration licenses, covering these huge, what they interpret to be iron oxide, copper gold targets, or IOCGs, as we often refer to them. And they did a little bit of work on these targets, did a little bit of geophysics, and completed literally just a handful of holes across this 4,200 square kilometers. And in addition to that, the government of the Northern Territory drilled, we'll call it a stratigraphic hole, just to really understand the geology. And there's huge parts of Australia that there's very little understanding of because of the cover. So this is another area that's got younger transported post-mineral cover. So there's nothing sticking out the ground here. And they identified alteration, which you would typically see in the vicinity of some of these IOCG deposits within one of these target areas. So there's a few things that really stood out. And then how this all came about is, you may be aware, Newcrest was ultimately acquired by Newmont. And during the process of as what typically happens when these big companies come together, assets get divested for different reasons, and this portfolio of targets became available, and we've got a great relationship with Newmont through joint ventures with our sister company, Headwater Gold, and we approached them about these specific projects, and we acquired them late this year. So we've had them just a few months now, and we acquired 100% interest. Newmont retains a small royalty on these specific projects, but ultimately we've got ourselves a whole portfolio of massive targets that essentially have never been drill tested before, with the exception of a couple of holes, and fit our criteria. You know, they're big targets, in this case, copper gold targets, but again, just ready to be drilled.
Right. I mean, just going back to the fact that they've also been third-party validated, because obviously Newcrest is a major mining company, and they were so good that they actually got acquired by Newmont. So it's like this is a major that has generated these targets and did the geophysics and all that. So you can already check the box if it's a major site, if the targets are in fact major sites, because otherwise, obviously, Newcrest wouldn't have generated them. And I mean, how would you, let's say, can you explain the difference, I guess, in exploring for IOCGs, and it's like, what kind of potential price are we talking about, and how do you go about it compared to, is it easier, is it harder than New South Wales with the undercover porphyries?
Yeah, it's a good question, Eric. So, I mean, in New South Wales, firstly, I mean, what we're exploring for, they refer to them as pencil porphyries. So, the porphyries that you might get, say, in Chile or in British Columbia or Peru, places like that, you get these large, massive bodies of disseminated copper gold mineralization, often hosted in intrusions. And specifically in New South Wales, these types of deposits are referred to them as pencil porphyries due to their geometry. So they're very skinny, pencil-like forms, vertical fingers, if you will, of a larger sort of intrusive body at depth. And their footprint, when you're essentially drilling vertically down, looking for these pencil-like bodies, is relatively small and challenging. I mean, once you find them, fantastic. They're beautiful deposits to ultimately mine, and they invariably occur as clusters. So if you could tag one of them, you're probably going to find several of these things. Now, the stuff in the Northern Territory, they're a little bit different. These are what we call IOCG deposits. These are a different beast altogether, but they're often magnetite rich. And magnetite, as you can probably imagine, suggests these rocks being magnetic, therefore often form distinctive geophysical characteristics, which can aid in the exploration process. So that's one key layer which we will apply to our exploration strategy, is looking at the magnetics. We combine that with gravity surveys as well. And then ultimately it comes down to drilling some holes. Now, the other interesting aspect of these IOCG targets is their geochemical footprint should be a little bit larger than the porphyries that we're exploring for in New South Wales. So what we're planning, and this is an ongoing discussion right now, is a series of what we call air core drill holes. And these are holes which are very, very cost effective to drill. We can drill for about $20 Australian dollars a meter through the cover sequence. And what we do, these holes essentially just take a little sample of the prospective basement, the bedrock. And what we're looking for is distinctive geochemistry in terms of mostly copper, but it could be arsenic and other elements as well. So one of the strategies that we're kicking around right now is to do a whole series of these these air core holes across the targets, sort of a first pass type program, looking to see if any one or two of them light up in particular. Just because we've got so many targets over such a big area, we need to somehow prioritize them. Now we can do that based on geophysics but at the end of the day, it's still a geophysical anomaly. So that'll be the next step, more than likely. But let's see how that progresses in the new year.
Right. I mean, it's, again, going back to the fact that you could form a basically junior around any one of these targets, and then you have even more targets across each project portfolio. So it's just, it's probably one of the most, it is the most unique grassroots junior I've ever invested in, because again, it has more major certified targets than any junior that I personally know of, at least. And yes, of course, that doesn't mean guaranteed success, but it's probably not going to be boring, at least, is what I would say. And of course, these air core drills, you don't need a necessarily big budget. It's kind of like what you did early on in New South Wales, right? Your prodding was almost like a glorified base of till drilling to see what's actually going on, right?
That's right. It's about $6,000 a day, so you can get about 200-300 meters of drilling done for that. So you can do a couple of holes probably for per day. So it's quick as well. And this is a key thing is really getting that cost of drilling down, and just getting lots of holes into lots of different targets. And I think this is a key thing. And history tells us, the more holes you're drilling into interesting targets, the more successful you should ultimately be. So we've really embraced that philosophy.
Right, a lot of bang for the buck. And okay, so as an investor, what could we expect, let's say, for the next 12 months? It's like, maybe, I don't know if you can promise anything, but it's like, if somebody asks, what am I getting in terms of potential news flow over the next 12 months, like why could things get exciting, etc.?
Yeah, so I would say there's three sort of prongs of workflow. So the first one being with AngloGold Ashanti. We'll be drilling again in the new year with AngloGold, and the focus initially there will be on the Trangie project. So you'll be getting to hear more about that over the coming weeks and months. So that'll be the main push. In addition to that, we've got additional targets that we have our 100% ownership of in New South Wales, one of which we mentioned just to the southeast of Trangie. I think we'll drill that ourselves. And again, that's going to be either the mud rotary or perhaps air core drilling into those specific areas of interest. And then, as we just talked about, the Northern Territory will become more prominent in our news flow. That will give us a lot more ability to talk about the news and the ongoing work that we're doing. And that's a little bit impacted by seasonality in the far north of Australia. So we're basically from now until about, let's say, April. We can't really get on the ground there because it is quite wet. But I think, April onwards, you'll start to hear more about the work we're doing there as well. But we're particularly excited about that one. There's a couple of real standout targets already that have come to surface, and it's a very obvious places to start. So very excited about the Northern Territory stuff, as well as obviously our ongoing work with AngloGold in New South Wales.
Right, and basically, even 12 months from now, is more than half the portfolio is easily going to be left to explore as well. So that's what I kind of like. If I'm speaking for myself as an investor, I see this as and of course I'm biased. Newquest is a banner sponsor, and I own a lot of shares and family members as well. But how I look at it is like you get major or majors worthy exploration targets for one of the most up and coming thinking hot subjects in terms of copper, because everybody, including or maybe especially the majors, are seeing a future supply crunch, let's say, and maybe, as we've seen, most majors prefer to be in the better jurisdictions, which Australia obviously is one because all the majors are basically there. And it's just, again, I think Quinton said it best. He hopes to one day just wake up and there you have the discovery basically. So that's what I like. I mean, this is, I think, very much a long-term bet in the sense that I'm not investing for one particular news release. It's not one catalyst I see coming. It's like, as you said, exploration is a process, and obviously that's been shown to be the case, that you're gradually learning more and more, learning more about the microenvironment geology, macro, then you're staking even more ground, and then you get even more projects into the portfolio. So, I mean, the way I look at it is, again, that if you look at the market cap, I think it's around 24 million CAD or something. Obviously, that's not pricing in very much like, oh yes, you're going to make a discovery. It's like the market is thinking that's 100% guarantee. So I personally like the amount of cans you're going to kick and could kick for the next 5 to 10 years, let's say. And I need one of those cans to come up with, turn up to have something, quite good. And then basically that turns into a successful case in that sense. So it's like, I just love the approach. I think it's one of the most unique juniors I have ever seen, because I've never seen a junior with this many major validated in terms of target size in a single company. It's like owning 10 juniors. Maybe I'm repeating myself here, but I like to talk about it. It's like owning 10 juniors, and you're still, because in my opinion, the market can only focus on one thing at any one point in time. Whereas, like, again, I'm just going on a tangent here, but that it used to, or a year ago or something, it was looking at Duck Creek specifically. Then Trangy kind of became the hotter one. And then it discounts all the rest, basically. Because if I look at the share price, for example, with the project acquisition, and if I could, I would love to start a junior picking up, a Newquest's portfolio in Australia, and then you pick it up from Newmont, of course. But that barely didn't even move the share price, which just goes to show that my thesis is the market can only focus and price in one thing really at any one point in time. There's always going to be a prevailing narrative. Right now, I think it's trendy. So the way I look at it, I think the current market cap is, pricing in a very small chance that you're going to find anything at Trangy, make a significant discovery, and then I get rest of all the other targets, all the other projects for free, and that's how I see it. It's like I think it's obviously cheap because of that, because I'm getting all the upside potential, but I only see that I'm really paying for one of the targets. So again, I'm biased, but it's like I like to talk about this stuff. That's how I view it. That's why I don't know a single other junior. The other ones that come close is Headwater, Red Canyon. I mean, it's the same approach basically, where you can see it in those cases as well, where you're really only kind of paying for, in my opinion, one of the projects. You get all the others for free. And on that note, maybe you want to give your 2 cents on the other Newquest companies, if you have any specific in mind that you would want, we should be looking at as potential investors or investors.
Well, you mentioned Headwater and Red Canyon there. I want to touch on those. I mean, Headwater, as I mentioned earlier on, it's focused on high-grade epithermal veins, mostly in Nevada and Idaho. But ultimately, it's got a very clear exploration focus, and we've assembled a team that really are experts in this specific field as well, and that's key. And really, what we've done with Headwater has got a number of partnerships with a number of different groups now. So it's got 2 specific joint ventures with Newmont, covering our Spring Peak and Lodestar projects. we recently signed three separate joint ventures with OceanaGold, again targeting essentially near blind epithermal deposits. And they were just was announced a couple of weeks ago now. And then more recently, we entered into agreement with Centerra Gold there as well. And they have optioned one of our projects in Idaho called Crane Creek. So there's a lot of dollars being spent on these specific projects. And a bit like Inflection as well, Headwater receives a 10% management fee for operating these joint ventures, which is a key part of this as well. So these generally it covers most of the corporate overheads and pays for new project generation as well. But I guess the key with Headwater and same for Red Canyon and Inflection, and we generate our own projects. So all of the projects are essentially staked on open ground, which I think is one of the key things that separates the companies from a lot of others out there. They're not doing third-party transactions for the most part. We sometimes do little deals to clean up little inlying blocks and things like that, but for the most part, acquiring new things by staking ground. And Red Canyon, which is focused on porphyry copper exploration in British Columbia and Nevada, has done exactly that as well, identifying new targets that were basically available for staking, and including the flagship Kendall property. This is just located outside the town of Terrace in BC. This is a huge new porphyry system that apparently had never been drill tested before, was sitting on open ground, and the team were able to acquire that through staking. So that's the sort of the theme really across the group of companies, is looking for things that we can pick up for basic staking costs and things that ideally have never been drill tested before. So yeah.
Yeah, no, it's just again goes to show that your incentives is for actual, definite, real success, not quote market success. Again, I mean, anybody can pick up, some project that's been around the block, and you can twin a hole or something, and then there's companies out there that does that. But like in your case, it's like no, everything is about actual, definite, real success, because obviously that's the only way you actually get a, let's say, a liquidity event one day with hopefully a takeover, let's say. So it's like you don't get any benefit really, especially given how tight the ownership is of these companies. You get nothing really for fluff, let's put it like that. And it just, again, I would urge people to look at look at the Newquest companies and compare that to how the run-of-the-mill junior operates. I'm not going to single out anyone, but it's like there's difference in exploration versus exploration, or there's juniors that are, just because they're also a junior, they're not the same thing. I mean, in my opinion, I think you have one of the most unique approaches, and thankfully, given the amount of major interest you have, that just basically proves it or confirms the fact that you are not like run-of-the-mill juniors, because they don't get this many big companies wanting to do this, these earning deals, especially not with these really good terms. So just look at the terms you've been able to do. It's like it's impressive basically across the board. But I'm a big fan. If that's not obvious, but maybe we'll leave it there. And, maybe do this again. Assuming let's hope there's some exciting news from Inflection or any of the other companies.
Yeah, it'll come. I mean, it is a process, as you mentioned earlier, and we're drilling lots of holes into lots of big new targets across the Inflection and the other companies as well. So that's the key here: drilling lots of holes into big new things, and not resurrecting old prospects that have been drilled many times before. So yeah, fingers crossed, and we'll keep plugging away.
That's all one can ask for. Thank you so much, Alistair.
Great. Thanks, Erik.